So hello, welcome to the video and welcome to Amman in Jordan. Yeah, okay, this isn't Amman in Jordan, this is actually Hong Kong, which has rolled out the welcome mat for me today with some spectacular weather. But I was in Amman a couple of days ago and didn't record an intro to camera on that occasion. A couple of reasons. Firstly, I didn't have a great deal of time on the ground. And secondly, I didn't really know if I'd get enough material to make a video. And if I did, quite what that video would be about. But I actually got quite a lot of footage out of the flight and I've decided to make a video about it. Now, I'd booked to fly on Qatar Airways from Amman across to Doha. And when I booked, it was scheduled to be operated by a 787. It's quite a lot of plane for quite a short flight, but it's a perfectly comfortable business class, not Q suites, but still fine enough. But Qatar is famed for changing its equipment, so a couple of days before travel I checked again, and indeed the 787 had been replaced with an A330-200. Now this is the equipment that I flew on with Qatar across to Phuket. And it's not their best, I have to say. I think I called that video the one that Qatar keeps hidden. It's also incidentally the basis of the seat that American Airlines uses on its transcontinental services. But then I looked closer, and underneath the A330 in small letters was the words operated by Oman Air. Now Qatar is offering so many flights that it often runs out of planes and has to cadge and borrow planes from whoever it can. And Oman Air's A330-200, well, it's really quite interesting. It's equipped with the Apex suite, which I'd seen a few reviews of previously, with the conclusion being thrown out that it might be the best business class seat in the world. So I instantly went from fear and loathing of Qatar having put me on their oldest plane to great excitement about travelling on perhaps one of the best business class seats in the world. It was only just over 2 hours down to Doha, but in this video I'll show you what that experience was like and what the seat was like, flying from Amman in Jordan to Doha in Qatar on Oman Air. And if that sounds interesting, stick around. Hi, I'm Matt and this is Matt's Planet. I aim to entertain, educate and inspire with my travel adventures from planning to execution. I'll show you how you can travel in style for a lot less than you'd think. So subscribe so you can come with me. It really was grim in Hong Kong. This Amman versus Oman thing may get confusing as we go along, but I'll do my best to enunciate things well. I'd landed into Amman just after 1 AM and my onward flight was scheduled to depart at 2:25, so I really didn't have long on the ground. But Amman Airport is quite compact and I seemed to be the only person connecting from my flight, so I was quickly through transit security into the quite attractive departures area. I'd seen that the status lounge here had an unusual design, so I made a beeline to check it out. It's on the balcony overlooking the central food court area, and it took me a while to find the entrance, but I found it in the end tucked away behind the Starbucks. The Royal Jordanian Crown Lounge spreads out to the right and left. I picked right, and perhaps unsurprisingly given the time of day, it was a bit quiet. It's famous, relatively speaking, for having a number of food stations scattered around the lounge, most of which were closed at 1 AM. There was a small buffet area to the right here and a bar further along where I had time for a rejuvenating beer, a Stella glass filled with something from a bottle that I didn't catch the name of. I also checked out the other wing of the lounge and it was quite nice, with a pizza station, closed, a coffee bar that was open and a few other spots further down that were all closed. It's probably not a huge lounge if you calculated its square footage, and I'd imagine it gets quite a lot busier during the day, but I saw nothing during my visit that would steer me away from transiting Amman if the opportunity arises again in the future. I headed to the gate and I'd either completely missed boarding or the plane was really lightly loaded. I suspect it was the latter, although it was such a short flight I didn't have the time to run a head count of the economy cabin. Airlines like you to travel with boarding passes printed on their own stationery, so it took a moment for new passes to be printed. I don't think they get many people connecting onwards from the BA flight, and it seemed quite confusing to them. Quite a long walk down to the plane. This had been sold as a first-class flight. The cabins that are furthest forward on flights within the Gulf region are called first, even though they'd be sold as business if they were flying anywhere else. Eventually I made it to the plane and I noticed immediately that the crew had Qatar uniforms on. Left into the forward 3-row business/first class cabin, there's another 2 rows of this seating if you'd turned right on boarding. I also noticed the Qatar logo on the entertainment screens. Seat 1A that evening. So what makes these seats special is that although they're laid out as a 2-2-2, each window seat has its own little aisleway for access, which means all seats have aisle access even though you're 6 abreast. In turn, that means that all seats face straight forwards, no yin-yang front and back seating here, and there doesn't need to be any slanting of seats towards the window. And even more importantly, there's no foot cubby. You're able to lie completely flat without having to cram your feet into a box. Window seat occupants are positioned slightly ahead of their neighbour, and there's a solid privacy screen between you. That seat was empty on my flight, but I think the window seat offers exceptional privacy. Aisle seats are rather exposed to passing traffic though, and remember that 4 out of every 6 seats are aisles. Windows are definitely the ones to go for. The central pair are aligned and are definitely the best for couples travelling together. But if you're in an aisle seat along either side of the plane, you don't need an aisleway, so get some of that space back in the form of a bonus storage area. The 2 main drawbacks of the seat are that the aisleway to the seat is rather snug and might be challenging if you enjoy a sturdy build or have mobility issues, as it is a tight and sharp left turn to get to your seat. The second is that it is just a little bit narrow. All of the buttons you'd expect for controlling a first class seat are to your left, and a remote for the entertainment system is to the right. The screen is quite a long way away. Underneath are USB ports and the headphone jack, and over your shoulder is a reading light and a handy headphone holder hook. Close to the aisleway are a couple more storage spots preloaded with water and headphones, behind which is a literature slot, still an Oman Air safety card. And the seat tour is rounded out with more reading lights but no overhead air vents, which surprised me a little. I promised myself that I would try and sleep for as much of this flight as possible, as I was connecting onwards when I got to Doha, so needed to sleep at some point. But I was happy to accept an orange juice, hot towel and a date before the doors closed. I declined the Arabic coffee. The Oman Air safety video was played, twice actually, in Arabic and in English, and we pushed back bang on time. A short taxi to the runway and we were off. This flight was blocked to take 2 hours and 30 minutes. Block time is the gate to gate time, so the time you spend in flight is always going to be less than this, and we ended up in the air for 2 hours and 6 minutes that morning. And remember, this flight was scheduled to run from 2:25 to 5:05 in the morning. But Qatar had still catered this flight with a full meal service, and I mean full. It goes against everything I stand for to not order any of this, as it looked pretty good, and the crew seemed genuinely upset that I wasn't interested in any of it, but I really needed to get some sleep. I held strong on the food, but I did ask for a cognac as soon as possible after takeoff to help me sleep. I'm still annoyed that BA has delisted their cognac. I didn't ask for the ice, but I didn't have time to complain. And of course the crew couldn't give me just a cognac, so I got a bowl of delicious nuts too. Hey, you'd miss it if I didn't include one of these shots in the video. Cheers! The seat goes smoothly flat and was plenty long enough for me, and remember, I'm 6'4". I cannot say how joyous it was to not see my feet disappearing into a cubbyhole. It's a narrow seat, but that's not really an issue when you're in bed mode. The bed takes up almost all of the width and was plenty wide enough. And the privacy of that window seat is only boosted when reclined. I slept for pretty much the maximum time I could, although that ended up being little over an hour. The loo had some premium gubbins, and a seat cover had been positioned in anticipation of custom. But really, a loo is a loo. Except when it's an Emirates first class loo, but you'll have to wait a few more weeks for that video. Dawn was breaking as we descended into Doha, and perhaps unusually we flew directly overhead Amman Airport before looping over the city to land. It's been reported that Oman Air is having some financial trouble at the moment and is cutting its fleet and the routes it serves. It's due to join the One World Alliance in the second half of 2024, and I've seen some speculation that this won't now happen. Head for Points reports that the entire A330 fleet has been retired from service with Oman Air, although this plane clearly hasn't been fully retired from all service. They've retained their 787 fleet, which also has these Apex suites, so you'll still experience them if you fly with Oman Air. And even with these retirements, Oman Air is still bigger than Royal Jordanian. It's hard to know how to summarise this flight, as it was neither a Qatar nor an Oman Air experience. It was a blended hybrid of the two. The crew were dressed in Qatar uniforms. I didn't specifically ask, but the mix of nationalities amongst them was typical of a Qatar crew. The in-flight service was all Qatar branded and the entertainment system was Qatari. But the safety card and video was still Oman Air's, and the Oman name is still painted on the outside of the plane. But the seat was Oman Air's, and that really is the focus of this video. And it was a really, really, really good seat. You can fly the Apex suite on Oman Air's remaining long-haul aircraft, as well as some Gulf Air, Korean Air and Japan Air wide bodies. And if you get the opportunity to fly it, I'd take it. I'll caveat this slightly by saying that although the seats are all inherently the same, the window seats are radically more private and are definitely the ones to go for. Indeed, it was so good that I was all set to declare it to be the best business class seat in the world, and it retains that title for about 5 days until I flew on a seat which I think is better. That review will be along in a few weeks, but all I'll say now is that if you want to experience what I now rate as the best business class seat in the world, you need to get yourself to Helsinki. Doha's airport is large with lots and lots of gates, but we still ended up pulling up to a remote stand. This used to really annoy me, but when you arrive in Qatar's first class, you get to experience the comically luxurious first class transfer buses, plus you are dropped right by the transit security point, so being allocated a remote gate wasn't a complete disaster. This flight was part of a very complicated multi-partner redemption I made through British Airways. But if you cost up what I paid and spread it around this trip based on miles flown, this flight cost me about 80 quid. So thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. Like, comment and subscribe, you know the drill. And if you'd like to support what I'm doing more directly, there's a Patreon account, the link to which is in the description below. So thanks again for watching and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.